first thing that goes in the pot is the water and the salt, right? And then the potatoes go in, then the carrots, the onions, and the last thing to go in is the fish. So because we're doing 2 pots tonight, they're about 10 minutes apart. Okay, so we have the pot full of boiling water, and then there's 2 inserts, an insert that fits inside of an insert. So the first insert goes into the boiling water, and then he drops in the potatoes. The salt's already in there. How much salt did we use today, Jim?
Just the perfect amount.
Just the perfect amount. A scotch. Water comes to a boil. The timing starts. We've got the water at the right temperature. He drops the potatoes and starts the timer on his watch. As long as we can keep it at that light boil, 28-minute process. The fish goes in at 6:20, comes out at 6:28. If the water temperature drops too far, 8 minutes, you don't want to have undercooked fish. And if it's boiling real hard and you leave it in too long, etc., then you have overcooked fish and it starts to fall apart.
All right, are we ready?
Ready. Ready. Whoa.
Woo! Okay, bringing it in.
So we're going to be back out here to pull the other pot in 10 minutes, but you can go in and get in line or freshen your drinks or whatever you got to do. And I'll get one volunteer.
Looks really good. Yeah, he's good.
So my name is Steve Bell. This is my wife, Kim. She is a Lautenbach. This is Frank in the back, Kim's oldest brother. He is a Lautenbach. All right. Their family are dairy farmers, okay? They were raised on a dairy farm, and they farm a couple hundred acres here. I won't get into all the private stuff, but I too grew up on a small farm by comparison, smaller, right? So Kim and I got married, and she had to go south of the bridge for fresh jeans for the gene pool. I grew up on a farm down by Dykesville, and went to Luxembourg Casco. Kim and Frank went to Sevastopol here in the township, right here, just east of here. So Mark just stepped away. There he is. This is my cousin Mark. He too is a Vandertye. His grandfather and my grandfather were brothers, and Mark and I went to high school together. We've stayed in touch for 45, 46 years, and he's retired. He and his wife Diana are up visiting from Florida, and they're joining you for your Historical Society event tonight. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mark's grandfather, Eli. My son is named after Mark's grandson. Or my son is named after his grandfather, my uncle. Okay. They had the Surfwood Supper Club and Motel in Dykesville by Red River Park, if any of you remember that. When the highway went through, a developer bought that and tore it down thinking that the southbound lane, remember that, Bill? The southbound lane, original 57 was going to be the southbound lane, and then the state changed their mind, and so we're going to put in a 4-lane and make that an access road. So the developer that bought it and tore it down is sitting on vacant land. So another cousin bought the hotel and converted it to converted the hotel into apartments. So my last name is Bell. That's not a name you know from around here. My mother was a Vandertye. That's a Southern Door name. My grandmother was a Rower. That's a Southern Door name. So Mark and I have the same great-grandmother, right? So that's our connection. So we joke that Kim had to go south of the bridge for fresh jeans from the gene pool, but yet stay within the county.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so Kim and I got married. I was in the Army for many years, and Frank and his dad and his brother, dairy farmers, but they started building log homes. And Frank's going to talk a little bit more about that, okay? But it was, the way I put it, it was a winter project because in the summer you're planting crops, spraying, cultivating, harvesting crops, and twice a day you're milking cows, you're doing equipment maintenance, you're doing building maintenance, you're doing pipeline maintenance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the winter, you still have all that stuff, plus the complications of frost and pipes potentially freezing, all that stuff. Hey, let's do something different. Let's build log homes. So the way it was explained to me, I was in the Army, wasn't married to Kim yet. They started doing it, and the first couple were kit log homes. Then they met a gentleman that taught them how to do what you see here. He worked with them on a crew to build a log home. And this is what Frank will explain to you. It's called Scandinavian scribe. Okay, so when Frank's not in the room, here's how I explain it. Every other log is repositioned. So you get a log that's this way. That's the butt end of the log. The next log is this way. And as you build it up, tier at a time, you try and end up at the same height along the way. But if you notice, it's big log, little log, big log, little log. It's because it's the way it's intended to be put together. So I won't get into, I normally get into how the place was actually built. If Frank is up to it, he can come up and he can talk that. All right, you correct me of what I'm missing then. So, all right, so this structure, after the family had built multiple log homes and sold them as specs, or they would sell a lot and build a home on it. Okay, but they built the Honeydew Lodge, which we run as an Airbnb. It's 2 miles east of here on Plum Bottom Road. When they finished that one, they went to working on this one. People say, well, how long did it take? Well, I say 10 years. But remember, that's milking cows twice a day, doing all your crops, doing logging, selling firewood, stopping for a year and a half. Frank and his brother and his dad, me to a little bit, helped all of the neighbors that were affected by the tornado in the late 90s. Because Frank has all this equipment, logging equipment, they went and just helped people. And that I know of, I think Parkos donated some fuel and Kosharts repaired a tire. Other than that, it was a year and a half of volunteer work to the community. Okay, did I get that right? Close enough? Okay, so, and then they built another log home over towards Bayshore Drive, so that this all sat for a year and a half. So all the free time went to that building. And eventually, Frank's dad said, boys, we got to concentrate on this. So when I got out of the Army, I got a full-time job. So I only helped out when I could. So my help with Frank was occasionally in the barn, occasionally driving a tractor, but I had a full-time job and I had rental properties of my own. When I quit my job in 2012, and some of you knew me, Bill knew me from that old job, then I could help out more here. So the logs you see, as I say the story, I was only around to harvest a couple of logs with Wayne Jr., but they got contracts with private property owners throughout Door County. Every log you see in here is a pine, pretty much white pine. There are apparently a few red pine mixed in, but they were harvested by contract from private property owners by selective cutting and going in and buying 6 trees from this guy and 10 from that, and then doing what they wanted with the brush, chip it, pile it, whatever. And tried to be, the reputation that I was told was that unlike many loggers that go in and devastate your property, they were very conscientious about not going in when the land was soft and trying to minimize any collateral damage to the deciduous trees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Kim, Frank, could you tell Kim to turn this on? I'm sorry, this is supposed to be running. I don't know where she went. Can someone find my wife and tell her to turn the video on? There's a video that's supposed to be playing over my shoulder as I do this. I just realized it's not playing. Mary, can you find Kim? So there, that was worth having, right? Okay. Where did I leave off? So the concentration belt, what became get working on this one, get it finished. So it was constructed by an engineer that only graduated high school, in my words, because he was the wrestling participant at state, representing his school at the state wrestling tournaments, and homecoming king and prom king. Okay, so the designer engineer here has a high school degree. Until about 3 years ago, never had a smartphone and didn't know how to turn a computer on. Am I wrong? He has his son do all that stuff for him. Just like I do. I have my son do all that stuff. So people will say, oh, the engineering, the engineering. No, it was Frank, primarily, with input from Wayne and Wayne Jr. Okay, so Kim's dad and two brothers. So when I got out of the Army and Frank and I were out, he was milking, I was quote unquote helping him, but he was explaining to me what's going to be on the west end of the bar up in the ceiling. Well, when you go out and look at it, try and visualize that as someone explains it to you verbally, with all the peaks and valleys and windows and triangles. And Frank says, I don't remember doing this, but he gets up from kneeling down behind a cow. He says, just a minute. He tore a bag off of something. I don't know if it was a mineral bag, and pulls out a pencil and tries to draw me a picture. I said, no, I'm still not getting it. And he says, that's all right. We'll have some breakfast in the house, and I'll try and draw you a better picture. So the engineering was in Frank's head. Okay, and then we had Henry Isaacson that came in and certified everything as an engineering firm. Okay, so the whole structure was built 2 miles east of here on what is now the county's quarry that Frank's grandfather, Frank, used to own. Okay, and this was built in the quarry. So when it was going to come here, we had all the lengths and angles, and every wall got a letter, and every log got a number, and it was dismantled and brought here and re-erected. Anything to add or correct?
Well, there was 7 buildings at one time sitting in the quarry.
Yes.
And a lot of the buildings were for other customers, you know. So this was it was your own project, you kick it aside. You get everybody else's work done first, you know. And whatever. Is it worth it? I don't know.
I don't know.
Is it worth
So,
it? I don't know.
Kim, don't walk away. It's not playing. I don't have the remote. You do.
No, the main thing I wanted to do, my dream was, well, see, we actually started out building,
Kit.
well, we had the log, we had the Hiawatha, and we had the beaver log thing kits. And we built, I believe, 3 of them, first of all. And, well, it was a little bit embarrassing after a couple of years going down the road. You put your fingers in right in the corners, you know. And then we come up with this Scandinavian style, and well, look, there's no comparison. It's beautiful right now, yet today, and this stuff is, oh God,
20 years old?
I was maybe 34 years old when we were putting these first logs together. Yeah, but no, I wasn't great in school, but I was really good in math and geometry. But I still would do it like a farmer does it. I actually, to figure out this roof system, I snapped out perpendicular lines on the ground, you know, and just once you have parallel lines and perpendicular lines, you build anything, you know. Just
Pythagorean theorem, yeah.
I actually stamped it on ice, guys. I did it on ice in the wintertime. Yeah. There's 157 different, well, not different trees, but different cuts. I know exactly what there is. It's nuts. You know, I'm not a good talker, guys. I'm going to give this back to Steve.
So what I say is, Frank is the master builder, master engineer that put this together, okay? But he gets a little tongue-tied, just like Dad does, and that's why they hand the microphone to me, or I usually don't use the mic, to explain this. So what the video, which is supposed to be playing, I don't know what the problem is.
Well, I stopped it.
Just let it play. All right, so they cut the logs down, they brought them home to the farm, peeled them with a shovel, and then used draw knives to pull the cambium layer off, okay? Because that's where your bugs are, and that's where your rot would be. And then all those logs sat on cribs, so you get 2 logs out like this, and everything else is set in this way, and you peel them, and you roll them, and then as you sun dry them, you roll them, and then you roll them over a little bit more. And that all went on in the quarry, so eventually it'll get to a picture that's in the quarry, which the family doesn't own the quarry anymore, the county owns the quarry. But you can see in the background, it's in a gravel quarry on Plum Bottom Road, east of Division Road. So the logs were brought in on the semis after they were harvested for private property, and Frank would figure out which log would be the next log for the tier he was working on, for which section, based on diameter and length. And then he would lay them out, he'd mark them, they'd get moved with the skid steer or the crane or the payloader, and then he'd block it and lay it in place, scribe it, so the unique features of the log below were marked onto the bottom of the log above it, so that he could cut it with a chainsaw and set it down to get an airtight fit. You notice Scandinavian scribe. By the way, what is this tradition of fish boils in Door County? Supposedly it started with the Scandinavian immigrants. Okay, so kind of neat, I'll throw that together. And feeding the loggers that were harvesting the pines to go to Milwaukee and Chicago. And that's where the fish boil supposedly started. It became a commercial tourist thing in the 60s when the one in Ellison Bay, the Viking Grill, started the tradition, as did Fish Creek Andy's place, the White Gull. Frank provides all of the firewood to the White Gull for their fish boils, which they do multiple a week. We do 1 or 2 a week. So he's got his hands in a lot of things. So still farming, building. So you'd have a couple hours between, okay, today we're gonna work on the log building, and he'd go work in the quarry a lot of times by himself, you know. But he'd work in the quarry and work and get stuff done. When we were ready to come over here, the way I put it, we came in and we cleared the lot on this 18-acre parcel and did the excavating for the roads. Then Frank dug all of the footings and the basement. The basement is only under the kitchen, okay? And then the concrete was poured for the footings. Then the shell that you see here is this building, but in the quarry. Then it was dismantled, put on the semis and on the farm wagons, brought here, and reassembled. Okay? So Frank can fill me in if I miss something here, but you build it twice. Yep. So, and you'll see in some of these pictures what Frank was just talking about, where there's other buildings in the background. So this building stopped to work on another building for a contract, and then you'd come back to this. Yep. So this one is the building we're in now. That's on the bottom left is the front entrance. So
The thing about building in the quarry, you know how the rock is all formed in the quarry, and then they have it blasted away. And anyway, if you actually look at the rock, it's actually perfectly level.
it comes off in shears.
It's absolutely excellent, because I could just quick go and look across the log and line it up with the rock, and I knew my level, you know what I mean? Just a simple way, it was really cool how it worked.
So when the shell was built, the trusses were built, the ties were built, the purlins were cut, all of the dovetails were cut in the scarf, all the scarves were ready. It was done over there. We had a break in the harvesting of the crops, and they started dismantling this stuff, putting it on semis and farm wagons and bring it over here. So when you start dismantling the walls, what's the first thing on the truck? The top logs. What's the first log you need when you get here? The bottom log, which is at the top of the load now. So if you do it right. But when you're building, you have to build it in tiers to a certain degree. You can get a little bit ahead on one corner and then work your way that way, but you can't just build a wall all the way up and not be building further down. So the other thing is, when you're building a stick-built home, sheetrock, paneling, whatever you're doing, and are hollow logs, and you've got insulation in it, and you've got a place for your wires, right? There's no hollow in here. You have to create the channel for the wires. So the bottom of the second log has a channel cut with a chainsaw for the wire to be tucked in for all of the electrical outlets. You have to know all of that stuff as you're building, because there's no going back and punching a hole in the sheetrock to run a wire.
Why didn't you build it on this property first?
We weren't sure where we were going to erect it. Okay, there was a potential for, was it Eagle River? There was somebody that was talking to us about it going there. Frank didn't want to give up his cows, and to move there, basically, it ain't gonna happen. We'll sell it to you and you can have another company erect it. No, they didn't want that. They wanted Frank to build it. And then there was a person up in Sister Bay that was interested in it and built basically the same layout, but with a milled log structure instead of Scandinavian scribe log structure. So then we had this building. Then there was one more thing. The younger brother was up in Egg Harbor, across from Wood Orchard, where behind it, they took that old cherry orchard and made it the Orchards Golf Course. And on the west side of Highway 42, there was a little acre, what was it, like 8 acres there or something? And he wanted to buy that, to build this there to be closer to the hotels. Might have been a good decision from a restaurant return on investment perspective, but already owning this 18 acres, the decision was made, we're gonna build it on our own property. Side note, Wayne Jr. did buy that little parcel and pulled out all the dead cherry or apple trees or whatever and resold it. And what ended up there is the cheese factory restaurant called the Glacier. Is that right? Is that what it's called? So, but Wayne, that's where Wayne wanted to build this. We built it here. Yes?
How did you get the wire through there? Is it in the floor?
No, it's cut into the log. It's cut into the log and tucked up into a car. Did I say that right?
That's why you see a lot of the base molding here, there's base molding around here. It's in behind,
Here.
it's in behind the base molding in this building here.
Okay, so the bottom,
It's on the bottom.
it's down here. So, but yeah, you create a
There's a lot
channel.
of conduits going across through.
The heating for this is firewood. Not that fireplace, but in the back we have a wood burner. And it heats the water, runs it to the basement to a heat exchanger, and then in here there's multiple zones to control the heat in each part of the building, and it runs the tubes through here. Now we've got it in summer mode, so it's not heating the concrete here, but we're still using that to heat the water for the bathrooms and the kitchen sinks and the dishwasher, et cetera, so that we're burning very little propane. Yeah, we burn a lot of propane for the cook line, but we're using firewood for our domestic water heated water. So anyhow, so what did we do? We built the place. When we had the shell done, then Frank was on the crane, I was on one wall, Wayne Jr. was on the other wall, and his dad, Wayne Sr., held the rope to guide the trusses into place. We dropped them in the pockets, hit them with, what's the name of that special hammer? The big circus hammer?
The thumper.
The thumper, yeah. So a wooden-headed sledge. So we would make some nudges and get everything to drop in there, but
But I guess what I kind of would like to point out to everybody, we built 4 homes down on Birch Lane and down there. Well, I've done every bit of the excavating for every job. We basically did all the cement work. Basement, we were always laying blocks.
Yep.
We always made block foundations. But, well, the first, we started in, what year was it?
83 or so?
83, and then 85, 86, 87 was, I guess, when we first made the first sale. And what we always had to do was, in order to sell the place, it seemed like we had to start renting it out. So they were all furnished. And
They rented them as like the Airbnbs. You understand what I'm saying?
that's what was going on. And then it seemed somebody always fell in love with the place and they bought it. But here's what got me a little aggravated was they were all sold for under $100,000. An acre and a half of land, a brand new well, a brand new septic system.
40 years ago.
Yeah, and it would an owner would hold on to it for maybe 5 years, and they turned around and they tripled their part money.
Yeah.
yeah, and I said, this ain't making sense, but I'm just being used. You know, you feel like.
Well, then you jump.
I had my heart in that damn place, you know. I was always fussy, but way too fussy.
You jump up to here.
Yeah.
When your dad said, okay, we got to get this building done. We got the trusses in, the purlins, all right? And the video will show this system. Oh, good timing. All of the tongue and groove that you see under here, Wayne Jr. wanted nothing to do with farming anymore. He just wanted to build. He was saying, why are we selling these so cheap? Why aren't we just concentrating on building and to heck with the farming? Okay, Frank wanted to keep farming. Well, the tongue and groove I'm going to come back to, but I'm going to point to the picture. That's Frank's dad, Wayne Sr., 25 years ago. But the tongue and groove goes on first. The ceiling goes on first, and it's spiked through the ceiling into the purlins, and then that Doug fir is on edge, and it's toenailed through the ceiling piece into the purlins, and then it's boxed. The wires are put in, the electrical supports are put in, and the skylights are built, and then it's decked with plywood and the tar paper. It was up on, not that point, a different point. I'm walking backwards, unrolling tar paper, and Frank's going along behind me with a hammer tacker, and all of a sudden he jumps up and he grabs me by the jacket, and he was afraid I was going to take one more step and fall 28 feet to the ground. But yeah, so did he save me? I don't know. I don't know if I'd have stepped off of it or not, but I was awfully darn close. So, but he saved me on that. We did have one person fall off the roof and broke their clavicle, Uncle Kenny. So anyhow, so it was a labor of love for the whole family, okay? Wayne, I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of times people would come here and Frank would be farming. I'd be at my job and Wayne would be down here working by himself because he didn't want to be working on the farm. So his excuse was, well, I'll go work at the restaurant building. So when people would stop in here and he'd be the only one here, then he would say, I built this, okay? I won't go any further than that. But I will give him credit that he probably did 85% of the ceiling throughout the building by himself. He spent a summer putting the ceiling on so we could then build everything that's above the ceiling to complete the roof system. Once it was covered with tar paper, then we hired a company out of Manitowoc County that did the standing raised rib metal roof. Okay, so the stones came from the farm, but we did hire a mason from Southern Door that built the fireplace. The bar was built by a company in Shoto, which is Manitowoc County. The HVAC, the plumbing, the well, the septic, that was all done by licensed plumbers. But the rest of it was done by Frank, his dad, his brother. I was merely labor when I had time, when I wasn't working my regular job or working on one of my 8 rental properties. Okay? So we got closer to opening. Kim, my wife that was helping you and bringing your coffee stuff, Kim was working at an area resort as a event planner, wedding coordinator, et cetera, and she quit her job at that place to come here to work with her dad for the business plan, the final equipment schedule, and hiring of the original staff. And so she and her dad managed the place and have been for 18 years. Her dad, do I have one in my pocket? I don't have a key. I say that the proverbial key to the farm was handed to Frank when we opened the door on April 10th of 2007. Okay, so Frank runs the crops, pays the property taxes, milks the cows, does all that stuff. Now, he sold his cows now. And now he's got more time to help here working with me, or I'm helping him now with maintenance, and we're constantly doing something. A faucet that's not working, a urinal that's not working, something wrong with the glass washer, because everything's 20 years old now, 18 years old. Our son, Kim and I have our son Eli that I mentioned a minute ago. He's supposed to be here, the little shit. Someone's got to wash the dishes tonight, otherwise, okay. Eli was born on April 7th, 2007. We opened on April 10th. We literally came from the Door County Memorial Hospital to here, and then Al's wife, what's her first name? Judy? Diane sat there and her 2 daughters and held little 3-day-old Eli for a couple hours while we were meeting guests and people from the county that came for our opening night. So we opened in April of 2007. We run all year round, but in the winter we're down to Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then on Sundays we do a brunch from 9 to 1. Okay. Which, there you go, and you need to tell more people that it's really great. So we do a big buffet on Mother's Day and on Easter, okay, and we'll do 400 plus people. And on the Sunday buffet, we'll do 200 people sometimes, and then we'll have other days based on the weather and other things going on in the community calendar, we might only do 75, So there's days where we question, should we be getting up and getting here to start plowing snow to open? We had one Sunday that we made the decision, well, all the food's prepped on Saturday to cook off Sunday morning to put on the buffet line. We're going to open, and I think that one Sunday where we were debating not opening, we had 12 people. So we lost our butt, and we ate a lot of leftovers that week. So at the end of the buffet, then we break it down and we bag it up, and I take some home, Frank takes some home, Mom and Dad take some home, and then we've got a couple families in the area that we help out. There's a gentleman from Bailey's Harbor that comes and he eats wife passed away, and they used to come in about once a month, and he still does. But after he eats his meal, one of us always tries to sit down and eat with him. His name is Dave, he's from Bailey's Harbor. And then when he leaves, we always give him 2 to-go dishes. One to take whatever he wants off the buffet line, and one for desserts. He says, I won't have to think about eating, that'll carry me through till Thursday. So we try and help them, a few people out. And just let them know that they're not alone, even though their spouse is gone now. And we have about 4 different people. Joe passed away April a year ago. Joe was in here a couple nights a week when the state took his driver's license away, a bachelor in his 90s. He lived 2 miles from here as the crow flies. And he would call and say, can someone pick me up? And we would run over and get him, bring him over here. He would sit at the bar and eat his meal and visit with the guests. And then we would give him a ride home. And once in a while he'd say, I would like a ride to Walmart or whatever. And my son would go pick him up, or Frank or Tricia or someone. And then there was Phil, whose wife passed away. And then we were doing the same with Phil. And we were making sure that they had plenty to eat as they went into their golden years, right? And they were alone. So there are several people that I won't, if I start listing them, I'll miss some, but they're passed. Phil has passed, and Joe has passed. Anyhow, Joe's picture is in a display case over by the bar. Carter, you knew Carter. Carter worked here. He was one of the first people that my wife hired. He passed away with liver failure in 21. It's his dog that I adopted that you met outside. There's a little tribute over there. Those fish hung in his living room, and his mom asked me if I'd hang them here. So anyhow, so it's a family-run facility.
Now, do you use any of the crops that spring for?
No.
No, I tell you, I have about 200 acres of corn and 300 acres of soybeans, right? They're looking at around here, on Bottom Road. No, it's hard to make money that way. It is. And I got so much money out in the fields, you wouldn't believe this year, it seems to me. And the crop prices, you're talking about the same numbers as we were back when we started building. You're only talking like under $4 for corn.
But per bushel.
Per bushel, and that's very similar to what it was back then. I don't know where everything else just went.
Well, the guys that are making money are the ones on the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the ones that are buying the futures and doing the commodities. They're the ones making money. They're sitting on a desk wearing a tie. It's not the farmers. So Frank sold his dairy cows. Now he can work more here. And because of the emerald ash borer, he's been harvesting a lot of the Dine trees on the properties. We've got several.
Yeah, we always did lots of firewood. I mean, I believe Dad had me driving the truck without a driver's license, and that was right when I was 15. And I've been doing a firewood business ever since, and that was 300 to 500 cords every year.
Yep.
And we did that all while building 17 homes, milking, we always milked 70 cows, and that was every night and morning. But what else were we doing? Lots. I did so much excavating everywhere in the county, driveways and basement digging, and I'm talking like a smart guy here. What the heck? I don't want to act that way. I'm not that way.
You're very humble, and usually won't come up and talk to anybody. So,
I mean, everything, I learned so much, like all this, that the concrete we're sitting on, there's tubes in the floor, and the rebar that's underneath, we did all that, every bit of it. Bastions came to us, it kind of was in the slow time between Christmas and New Year's when we actually cemented this basement, cemented the floor out, and I know that them guys were out of work at the time, and we got them for, peanuts they were working. I don't even know if the boss was here, it was his men, I know that area in there, I was milking, and they started in the bathroom, and they had carried the cement in through the front door of the wheelbarrow. But then I took over, and I wheeled every wheelbarrow of that cement. I mean, it was, oh God, nuts.
That's when I was glad that I had a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. So.
Yeah, we did mainly between Christmas and New Year's, but unreal how much a guy has learned. The stamping of the sidewalks and all that out here, we did that all. And then, even the curbs that you're driving your cars up against in front, that there was just a stupid idea I had. I took some 2x10s and some stamps and I made it look like a timber. You know, it was actually
Stamped concrete.
yeah. It was just.
All right. Yes, Mike.
Talk about the timber posts at the entrance and the carvings at the door.
Okay, I'll cover the carvings. Jeff and Sheila were hired to build all of the custom doors. They live in Hurley area, Hawk Hollow Enterprises.
Jeff Proust.
Proust.
Jeff Proust.
Proust, yeah, Jeff and his wife Sheila. So they made some of the stuff that's out there in their shop, and we bought it from a raccoon, an eagle, a turkey. But then they came on site with the doors, and then Frank built that truss and left it sticking 7 or 8 feet longer than it needed to be. And Jeff and Sheila carved the salmon to match the doors they had made. In the south dining room, they made this big eagle, which was going to sit over the bar, but its wingspan was a little too long, so we moved it down and made an eagle's nest on the root ball of that same truss log, and the big eagle is in there. And you feel free to, when we're done here, to walk around the building, take pictures, whatever. You'll see the end of this big log that goes through to the dining room. The root ball was there, and they carved a buffalo head out of it, and the nose is lower than the log, and you might wonder how. Well, that was the root flare. Okay? Now the beard underneath and the horns, I don't know if buffalo's horn or antler, they were epoxied on. The white-tailed deer that's over there, again, it was the root ball end of the log, and they carved a white-tailed deer on it. Wayne Jr. had stepped over here to leave a leak. No, guys, we don't take a leak, we leave one. Okay? But he had walked over here to do his little privacy moment, and he found a half a shed. So he kept walking around, and he came up with the second one. And then when Jeff carved that butt end of that log, he carved it into a whitetail, and it has the abscission protrusions, and so the antlers are real, and they were found on the property. Versus the head of that deer was carved out of that log. So, and then the log over here is hollowed out, and they shoved a raccoon in it. And all of the bears were all carved in place after the logs were in place. So,
The two corner posts at the entrance.
yep, there's a picture of them in here.
Set in place and then carved in.
In place.
In place.
It was carved in place. So, and there's
Very
different
nice,
pictures.
they're beautiful.
So, and there's some maintenance issues that need to be done.
The thing about that I kind of find, they get a lot of compliments, all the carvings, you know, but I couldn't make a mistake when I was doing the log work. I couldn't, if I did, well, the wood carver, he would just simply carve it a little bit deeper, you know what I'm saying? And the other thing about that is, we paid them as much money or more money than we paid the people that put the roof on this building. There's a lot of
Sure
roof
you
out
did.
there. There's a lot of roof out there. Yeah.
What you
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But the coordination between you setting it up and then them finishing it, that is magic. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either they do it in the shop and then they bring it in, and it loses the magic. But when you set it in place and they work with it, that's a good collaboration.
So of the Lautenbachs, now someone said they know Daryl and Maddie. Who said that to me earlier and asked, how are you related? Okay. Daryl and Wayne Sr., Frank's dad, are first cousins. Okay. Daryl is now the oldest surviving Lautenbach. Is he 85 or 86? He'll be 86 here at his next birthday. Wayne, his dad, is 83. Wayne is here every day. Now, I know you didn't eat off the salad bar, but he makes the soups. He makes our prime rib. He does our ribs. He baked your chicken. He prepped all of your vegetables. for the boil. He's 83 years old. And there's days where we'll say, Wayne, you need to go home and rest, or go home and spend time with Diane, his wife, Frank's mom. And then we'll look outside and he's across the road on a tractor cultivating corn. Or he's in the barn, before the cows were sold, he's in the barn helping a heifer pull a calf. You know, but for the last, I'm going to say this is his second summer, when he can get out of here, he looks to see what the Brewers' schedule is. And he loved to play baseball in the county league when he was younger. Before I was in the picture, Frank would remember it. It was before I was around. But the last couple of years, the two of them at 83 and 81 sit in their living room in the air conditioning and they watch the Brewers games together. So your dad will be here early in the morning, but he knows the schedule of the Brewers. Are they playing a game coming on at 2 or at 6? And then Diane will be calling, someone sent Wayne home, the game comes on in 10 minutes. So, yeah, there's a game on right now. I think it's the Marlins. Oh, the Cubs. Cubs. This is an important one because the tiebreaker. Yeah, 3-game series. That's right. So, anyhow, I don't want to get any more further into all of this, but Frank was the master builder, master designer, and usually I'm up here talking. It was very nice that Frank was able to come in here, and you can see the emotion, the passion, the artistry that went into this came out of his brain and was put together by his back. Okay, so
Bravo.
All right. And I don't want to discount what Wayne Jr. did or what Wayne Sr. did, okay? Because there were huge contributing factors there as well. But this was a master builder, master designer, and the guy with the vision. All right?
I mainly did everything as far as above the 8-foot walls on every building we ever built, which, you know, a lot of homes, when you get the loft situation and all the rooms beneath, you have all the problem of the settling, huh? But the log walls are all gonna shrink about 3 inches over time, and you have to make it so all the wood windows don't get crushed. The walls, like the bathroom beneath a loft, that all has to be made to settle, you know. And I have some great ideas for that. I had them. We were putting all these basement posts in the wall, and you could always go in the basement and turn the screw down, and you can let the post slide through the wall, which holds up upstairs. Is how it all works.
And in this building, of course, there is no basement in this part of the building. So
And how did you know all these things?
trial and error and experience.
I don't know. I don't know. I always could kind of see that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Hold that for a second. We're going to ask Bill a question in a second. So he just talked about settling. If you look over here, for those of you who can see it, right here, when this was originally stained, you can see that this log has dropped about 3/4 of an inch based on that stain line, and this was stained in 2006. Okay? So, and then here, I explained this, but I'll let Frank explain it, how the door frame system is one unit, but then there's a pocket in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's only nailed on the top. You know, and it's able to settle. Where Steve's hand is there.
This board is this one.
Actually, was a 4-inch up there. And,
So that if the building shifts with the changes of temperature and humidity, there's a pocket under here that's tufted with fiberglass insulation so no breeze can blow through it, and we don't have any problem with bees or ants getting in there. But if the building is going to settle, the doors and windows aren't impacted because there's an expansion capability behind this fascia board in every door and every window. Okay? And that was Frank's that came up with this and did it. In all of the windows in here, there's one window that we're watching that it's not breaking from settling or anything, but it looks like it's lost its seal in the triplane, and it's one window that's starting to fog up. Whether we replaced it or not, I don't know. But every door, we have not had a single door problem or window. The bathroom door in the men's room here is starting to drag a little bit on the floor. So we either need to do a little log adjustment or get the belt sander out and take a little bit off the bottom of the door. Whichever Frank decides is easier, but it's something we're watching. So Oh, yeah, he was talking about the expansion, and that's a good way to spot it right there, so you can see what I'm pointing at, right? So,
Like you said, Henry Isaacson was the one that actually stamped this off. But he had this building standing here. We had actually about four different architects
engineers.
come and look, and none of them were qualified at the time to actually stamp it
Right.
off. And then Henry Isaacson took it on, and he said, "Well, I know you could drive a D8 cat on top of this building, you know."
it's over-engineered.
Yeah, it was way overkill. Well, see, there's common rafters. But first of all, you put the truss up, and then you throw it. Those are called purlins.
These.
And in the center, that's a dovetail. You can never pull out of there in the center. And then out here, that's actually a blind notch that hangs out and makes the cantilever out. But now here you got a proud gable.
Proud gable meaning it's not straight across here. It's got this 20-degree pitch, okay?
Which makes it just about impossible, guys. But
You got to calculate all that math and not having a smartphone or a computer.
It's just a nightmare. And I can't tell anybody how bad that was. I didn't realize it would be that bad.
So he's got 3 of these proud gables, 4 in the building, right? 1, 2, 3, and then you could argue the front entrance too, where the doors are.
You know, right here, the picture is just down there. Whatever, this.
That's Frank in that picture 25 years ago.
This here, see I'm on the ground there? That was actually what's above the barn, that spider web thing that I made. I just wanted to simulate what it would look like. You see buildings brought together at 45 degrees all the time, or
90.
at 90 degrees perpendicular, you know. I want to do it at 22 and a half, you know, and that's how the octagon and all fit in.
Wow.
And,
No computer, no smartphone, no engineering degree
yeah.
in his head.
But, well, actually, we took the top course off. We set the top course off on the ground, put it all back together on the ground in a different area, and then you were able to measure everything. You know?
And put your pocket for your dovetails and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then you see how he was saying how the post is cantilevered out for the roof system, just like the front entrance that Mike was asking about the bears and the vision. Those are actually cantilevered out. So what was holding them up temporarily was just a small board, and the big one was put in place, and Jeff carved it. So we do have a little bit of deterioration going on with it at the base because it's sitting on concrete. So we got a little work to do there, but
We're probably very boring in here, Steve.
yeah, this is a lot longer than I normally do this. Usually usually I try and keep this to 10 to 15 minutes, but Bill?
So what about wall insulation? What about air infiltration?
The logs are their own R value. There's no chinking in here. If there's a couple pictures in here, you'll see where there's a gap cut underneath here, okay, without going into the whole detail. And you can before you put this log down, you can tuft in some insulation and then set this one down on this one. So, but there's no chinking.
All the weight, okay, between the logs, that's called the lateral. And what it is it's kind of extra, and it's cut like this, and this I guess actually, the fiberglass is in there, but you have all the weight sitting on these 2 sharp points, you know, so it just keeps settling down. And the Scandinavians, they don't believe in driving nails or like some of the log home kids, they always put steel pins in and stuff, but they had
Hold up a second.
a round square peg in a round hole is how this works. It's an old
So you drill the holes and then drive the square dowel in it. I'm going to point what he was just talking to when it comes to it on the video. So it might take 2-3 minutes. I'll just watch the video until we get to that. But he uses a scribe to get the characteristics of the bottom log, to draw a line to the bottom of the top log, the log above it. So I like below the muskie, the third log, the top of that third log above the muskie, below the muskie, I mean. See how it's got that knot? Well, then you cut between the knot and the scarf according to the scribe line that he drew. So you run the scribe in here. I'm just trying to do this in layman's term, but you run the scribe along here, and the uniqueness of this gets marked onto this, and then he cut this log to match this log. Did I say that right?
And extra. You do both sides of the log.
Both sides of the log.
It's upside down, and it looks like a woman's figure on it, you know. Then you just have to cut that out in between the lines.
I didn't realize the food's still out. I should have put that away before I started talking. I'm going to keep watching. But any other questions? Michaela?
Frank, I want to know, with your gifts that you shared with us tonight, are you mentoring to anyone young? The talents and the skills that you have brought to bear in your life, who are you passing this to? Who are you helping to learn?
No, that's a silly question.
Do you feel like you have a group of young men or women to pass this gift on to give them a hint of the glory of this gift?
Well, I tell you what, my son, he seems like he's not that interested, but I got the best father in the world. I got the best son in the world.
Absolutely. I'll amen that. So,
I spent the whole day out in the boat with him yesterday, and I'm sunburned, and oh man.
yesterday was his son Cal's 36th birthday. So they had a birthday party at Cal's house in Sturgeon Bay. So there were 3 generations there from both Cal's side and Cal's wife Katie's side.
I don't want my son to have my life. No way in heck. I worked every day there was. I mean, I told Eli.
Sundays.
I told your son lived there. I said, Eli, whatever. He's got it so nice. I used to get off Sunday afternoon until milking time that evening. And that was my whole life. That was my whole life like that, guys.
And raising his son Cal, Sunday afternoons was Cal time. Get the cows milked, then he'd go snowmobiling, ice skating, play hockey, go play putt-putt golf, go out to Cherry Hills and play golf. Sunday afternoons was his day for his son. But it was after milking, before milking. Yeah, and that's the way Cal was raised. Shar, is there anything else that you would like us to hit on?
Gratitude. Just remember, there's a lot of gratitude. History is all about gratitude, so thank you.